We also heard Democrats go after Patel for his prosecution of, or the Department of Justice's prosecution of former FBI Director James Comey. They're calling it politically motivated.
We're also witnessing a litany of other abuses. Political firings of trusted career agents whose only fault was following the facts and the law. That includes the firing of agents and staff from a special counterintelligence unit that monitored threats from Iran. Weaponizing the FBI to seek political revenge on former FBI Director James Comey and others.
Remember, Comey, the former FBI director, faces federal charges now for this picture, right, centered on this photo that reads 8647, arranged in seashells on the beach. Last year on Stephen Colbert, Comey said that he and his wife came across this seashell arrangement. He put it up on, like, it was already there on the ground. He put it up on Instagram. Now, the Justice Department says that term, 86, constitutes a threat against the president. It's also something you'll hear, like, in restaurants, right? If something's out, you try to cancel an order. Comey's trial is set to begin July 15th. In the meantime, over the course of the last year or so, he's written a crime novel called Red Verdict, his fourth. And he says in the acknowledgments that writing was a refuge for me during a difficult 2025, a year in which the idea of apolitical justice was under serious attack. Director Comey is joining us now. Director, it's good to be with you. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
We will talk about the book. I want to talk about some things that I know are on your mind. Let me start with what's going to happen as you're rolling out the book just 2 months from now, just about with this trial set to begin. I wonder, do you think it is going to get that far, sir, to the point of an actual trial?
I promised my lawyers and myself I would abide the local court rules and not talk about the case except in the courtroom. I'm sure we'll file a variety of motions, but we'll talk about those in the courtroom.
Okay, understood. Let me ask you this at least, and I'm wondering if this is maybe in the parameters of what you can talk about, because you're accused, as you know, of willfully threatening to try to kill or hurt the president with that Instagram post. Were you intending, Director Comey, to try and kill or hurt the president when you posted a picture of seashells to the internet?
Yeah, I got to keep my promise to the lawyers. I talked about this a year ago when it first became public before there was a case, but given that there's a case, I have tremendous respect for the federal courts, and so I'm going to stick to my promise.
Okay. When you say you talked about it a year ago, are you referencing that Colbert interview where you talked about, you didn't put the shells in this formation, right?
I think I talked about it with Nicole Wallace and with Stephen Colbert.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And it wasn't you who put the shells that way?
Yeah, I'm dying to answer that, but I can't. I promised my lawyers I wouldn't talk about the pending case except when we're in court.
Let me try. I just want to ask one more. Let me just try this, because I do wonder. This isn't about the case. This is more about, you know, you knew by that point, you and President Trump, I think it is safe to say, he's not your biggest fan. And we'll get to more of that in a second. What were you thinking when you posted that picture? Did you suspect it might antagonize him?
I'm sorry, Hallie. I got to give you the same answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to.
Let me ask you this. The president is, as we have been reporting here on this show, the president is on his way to China. He's going to spend the next several days there. He's got a lot of sort of geopolitical work ahead of him over the course of this week. What message do you think it sends to other countries when the Department of Justice here in the U.S. is pursuing a case like the one they're pursuing against you?
I think it's really important for the Department of Justice to be just and to make decisions just based on facts and law. We always depict in our country the Lady Justice statues with blindfolds to signal that we want decisions made without regard to race or wealth or politics. The Department of Justice has to be the guardian of that. So without regard, forgetting my case, in general, the department cannot target people like an Adam Schiff or Letitia James or Senator Kelly because the president doesn't like what they say. It just can't be that way and still have an uphold the rule of law in this country.
You know, you mentioned some high-profile people, including, I'm thinking of Adam Schiff. You know, before President Biden, then President Biden left office, he perhaps was thinking in a similar vein, and he issued some preemptive pardons against people like Anthony Fauci, against people like Mark Milley, et cetera. Did you at the time ever think about, for yourself, asking for a preemptive pardon?
No, never.
Why not?
Because accepting a pardon, as the Supreme Court said in the early 1900s, carries with it an implicit admission of guilt. And I am not guilty, and so I'm not accepting a pardon. I'll stand up and defend myself against anything that comes.
Do you worry that this case against you or the actions that have been taken against you generally are an attempt to silence your criticism of the president?
Well, I can talk about the case that was dismissed in Virginia. There we made a motion and showed the judge that every time I spoke out against President Trump, he spoke in retaliation. It was almost like this odd call and response, where I would say something critical of the way in which he was conducting the Department of Justice, and he would wake up in the middle of the night and call me some name. And so that's the reason I was targeted in Virginia. And so we moved for a dismissal based on vindictive and selective prosecution. We didn't get to that point because there were so many problems with the case that got thrown out first. But yeah, I worry very much. I don't care what your politics are. You got to take a deep breath and realize we cannot be this way, where the president uses the power of criminal justice to go after people because he doesn't like what they say. That's not American.
To pull on that thread a little bit more, this idea of selective and vindictive, because even after that case, you have continued to make public your concerns about the way that President Trump is running the country, right?
Yeah, because I have grandchildren, and the oldest is 7 now, but someday they're going to be teenagers, and they're going to want to know, so what did Pop do during Trump 2.0? When he was taking a flamethrower to the rule of law? What did Pop do? Did he go silent? Never. I want to be able to look at my grandchildren and say, you know what, it was a major pain for me, but I stood up straight and I spoke the truth.
Let me ask you about some of the things that the president has said about you as you talk about speaking the truth. He has called you, even just this week, he's called you a bad guy. He's called you a dirty cop. Why do you think he brings you up so much?
I don't know. It's the relationship he can't get over. I mean, I don't wake up in the middle of the night thinking about him, but he does thinking about me. I think it's two-part. It's one, he wants to try and silence my criticism, and two, he wants to send a message to others who might consider speaking that this is what will happen if you speak out. And so I hope there are enough people of character who will say, you know what, I don't care what threats are made. I'm going to stand up and speak the truth.
Do you feel reassured by any of the conversations that you may be having behind closed doors, privately, et cetera, that what you're doing is making an impact on that front?
I don't know. There's a risk of a selection bias, right? I talk to lots of people who say nice things, but it could just be the people who want to say nice things talk to me. I don't know. And honestly, it doesn't make a difference because you must, if you've dedicated your life to the rule of law, this is your time. You should stand up and speak. Lots of people speak, lots of people don't. I don't know. I can only speak for myself, which is what I'm trying to do.
You have talked about how in 2.5 years you think people will flood back to the Department of Justice. And in fact, in your book, it sounds like so many of these individuals are front and center for you. You write, you in the acknowledgments, acknowledge the beating heart of the Department of Justice you know so well. You address how many people like them, including some in your own family, have been fired without cause or forced to quit on principle. Many other good folks remain, trying to survive until the institution can be rebuilt. What makes you so confident, Director Comey, that you think people will return who have left the Department of Justice under the Trump administration to the DOJ down the road?
Because I know them so well. I was one of them when I was younger. 2 of them are my daughter and my son-in-law. There's a fire that burns in them. It's an apolitical drive to try and do good for people. And they don't want to make money. They want to try and serve their community and their country. I know hundreds of people like that, and they're going to come back. That's what makes me so optimistic about the future.
Let me ask you about the person who currently holds the position of FBI Director, who was on Capitol Hill today facing some questions from members of Congress, as you may know. How would you assess the leadership of Kash Patel right now?
Yeah, I don't care to. I think the thing speaks for itself, an expression I remember from law school, and so folks can just watch and make their own judgments.
Have you been watching and making your own judgments privately?
Sure. I try not to watch too much, but I have observed the thing, and others can observe, and it speaks for itself.
I ask because I do think it speaks to, though, if there are concerns that you have, this question about what happens to the institutions here. You have often talked about, you know, and various people do, the legs of the stool that build the foundation of what this country is and about the democratic principles. And at what point, I wonder, do you think this becomes what you see as the erosion of some of the fundamentals of the democratic principles that are involved in the Department of Justice? At what point is that erosion irreplaceable?
Well, I don't know. I don't think we're at that point. I think the Department of Justice and the FBI have been deeply damaged. Lots and lots of people hurt, norms shattered, all kinds of bad things have happened. But I also know that time flies, and that these institutions are old with deep cultures, and there are thousands and thousands of people who make up that culture who are very different from the people leading it today. So I don't know whether you could change the culture in a fundamental way if you gave Akash Patel or Donald Trump or Todd Blanche 2 decades, but they don't have 2 decades, and so we're going to be okay.
Okay. In this book, I wonder what message you want people to get from it. I know it's not your first novel. You've been down this road 3 other times here, but help people understand. Is there something you want them to take away from Red Verdict?
The Red Verdict, like the other 3 books, tells cool stories inside the FBI and the Department of Justice that are real. They're fiction, but they are accurate, and they capture the nature of the people involved. Flawed, like all human beings, but deeply committed to getting it right. And so the only thing I make up are the particulars of a case, because it's a fiction book, but the character of the people and the atmosphere is what's felt by people who are inside the institutions. So I think if you read my fiction, it's fiction, but you will see and feel what it's really like.
Director Comey, before I let you go, let me just ask you this. It's been publicly reported that there may be another indictment headed your way. Would that surprise you if that were to come to fruition?
It would not. I've told my family, just be prepared. This is not going to go away until these people leave office, and so we'll deal with it if it comes.
Have you heard anything from any of your legal team about the potential for another one yet?
I've seen stuff in the media that's kind of vague, that they are lying awake at night trying to find ways to get me and get John Brennan and get Jim Clapper and get lots of other people. And I don't know whether it's real or not, but I think we should all be prepared that they will continue to use the power of the Justice Department to please Donald Trump and try to meet his desire for retribution against people who've spoken out.
Do you feel any protections from some of these statutes of limitations requirements in place?
Oh, sure. I'm a tremendous believer in our system of justice, meaning especially in our court system. I know those systems. I know the people that occupy the roles of federal judges in this country, and so it's one of the reasons it's going to be okay.
Director James Comey, thank you very much for being with us. New book, Red Verdict, out today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Hallie.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.